Hi everyone, our new unit is exponents, and the first section of that unit is called powers and exponents, and that's what we are looking at today. So a couple words to go over to make sure that you understand what we're talking about. An exponent tells how many times a number called the base is used as a factor. So jumping down here for a minute, if I wrote 4 to the power of 2, also said as 4 squared, the 2 is the exponent and 4 is the base. So there's an example of those words. Numbers that are expressed using exponents are called powers. So the actual whole 4 squared is called the power. So here we go, let's jump into this. And yes, the homework will be just as straightforward as this. If you can follow and understand all this, you should do okay tonight. So write each expression using exponents. So here's the question. 2 times 2 times 2 times 2 times 2. So what we're looking for you is to write that as 2 to what power? Well, how many are there? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So instead of writing out 2 times 2 times 2 times 2 times 2, I just write 2 to the 5th power. You don't need to figure out what that is. Just to use our words here, the base is 2, the exponent is 5. Next one, we can also have variables, m times m times m times m. So with this one, our base is m, and our exponent is 4, because there are 4 m's being multiplied. That's your answer. 3, if I just write 7, that's kind of weird, there's only one of them. How are you supposed to write that? Well, your base is 7, and how many are there? How many 7s are there? There's only one. 7 to the 1st. If we had something like this, number 4, 2 times 2 times 2 times negative 5 times negative 5. Okay, well, so with the 2's, we know our base is 2, and it will be 2 cubed because there's 3 of them. And then I'm multiplying because that's what we're doing here. The next one, our base is, I'm going to keep the parentheses, negative 5, and how many of those are there? 2. You can leave it like that because the directions said write each expression using exponents. So keep that in mind. As a side note here, I kind of forgot to write this in my notes, but let's go over this really quick. What do we have? What if we had 2 to the 0 power? Does anybody know what that equals? Or x to the 0 power, or quantity negative 5 to the 0 power? Not like anyone can answer me, I'm just talking into a video. But, so if we have the 0 exponent, okay, anything to the 0 is 1. So 2 to the 0 is 1. X to the 0 is 1. Negative 5 to the 0 is 1. The only number that doesn't work here is if you had 0 to the 0. So as a rule, a to the 0 power equals 1, where a cannot be 0. I think I might have got ahead of myself, and that's another lesson, but I think it's worth mentioning here. Okay, back to exponents. Here we go. So what if we asked you to write each power as a multiplication expression? So that just means, can you write it out? Do you know what 10 squared means? 10 squared, that just means the base is 10, and I'm multiplying it by itself. There's 2 of them, 10 times 10. That's it. Don't tell me that that's 100, just leave it. Number 6, b to the 3rd. Okay, so that's 3 b's. b times b times b. That's it. That's your answer. Next one. Okay, there's only one 10, so I write 10. X squared, so that means I have 2 x's, x times x, and then y to the 4th, that means there's 4 y's. 1, 2, 3, 4. You're like, why are we doing this? To know, so that we know that you understand exponents. Number 8, there's just a 5, so I write a 5. It's a cubed, so that means I need 3 a's, and then b squared, so I need 2 b's. And that's your answer there. Now, before we jump into the most difficult part of this section, again, this will be posted in the notes, but to simplify an expression with exponents, you basically follow the order of operations. You do all operations within grouping symbols first. So that's like your PEMDAS. That's your P, or your grouping symbol. Some of you like to call it G. You start with the innermost grouping symbols first. Then you evaluate all powers from left to right. So that's like your E in PEMDAS for exponent, or powers. I don't know why they use powers there. G, should have wrote parentheses. Okay, do all multiplication and division. So that's your M, D. And then do all addition and subtraction. That's your A and your S. So really, I just wrote it all out for you here. I actually copied it from your book. But really, it's just saying follow PEMDAS. Again, I'll post this on the classroom. So let's apply that to these here. So number 9, it says evaluate. So that means actually figure out what this answer is. -5 in parentheses squared. So your base here is -5. And that means I'm doing -5 times -5. Well, what is -5 times -5, if this thing would focus? A negative times a negative is a positive, and 5 times 5 is 25, so my answer is 25. Now, I'm going to do one that looks just like it. No, this wasn't a mistake. This is on purpose. Number 10, and I'm staying zoomed out so you can see the difference, is -5 without parentheses squared. Notice on 9, there was parentheses, Captain Obvious over here. But there's a difference between the two. In number 9, your base is -5. In number 10, your base is 5. Okay, what this is really saying here, another way to think of this is you're doing -1 times, keep this in the box, 5 squared. Okay, so -1, well, what's 5 squared? To really do that out for people who need to see it, that's 5 times 5. What's 5 times 5? 25. You get an answer of -25. So you need to pay attention to when you have parentheses and when you don't. When you have parentheses, that number inside is your base that you're multiplying by itself. When there are no parentheses, whatever number is kind of right below, whatever number is attached to that exponent, that is your base. And then that negative just gets kind of stuck on at the end. It helps some people to see the -1. Some people it confuses you. So if that confuses you and in your mind you're just going to do the 5 squared and then call your answer negative, that's fine too. I just showed this out for people who need to see it. Now 11 and 12 are just like this. I wanted to do 2 more like this because these are examples that a lot of people usually confuse. So again, in 11, your base is -2 because it's in parentheses. So this is saying you're doing -2 times -2 times -2. Well, when I multiply 3 negatives together, I get a negative number. And then 2 times 2 times 2, that's 8. So my answer is -8. Again, your base is -2. I can label this here for people who want to look back later. Your base was 5. Okay. And then in 12, this is like 10. Again, what are you doing first? Your base here is 2, and you're raising it to the 3rd power. So you're doing negative. Maybe I'll show it a different way. Throw in some parentheses. You're doing 2 times 2 times 2. Well, 2 times 2 is 8. So my answer is -8. Yes, in this case, you did get the same answer. The difference in 9 and 10 is you had an even power. So you're going to get 2 different answers with the signs. In 11 and 12, you had an odd exponent. So that's always going to give you the same sort of answer when you have this negative in there. We'll do more work with this. It's just something I wanted to introduce today. So 13, you're given the expression 4m cubed and m is 2. So I'm asking you, remember when it says to evaluate, to put 2 in for that variable. So you have 4. Notice how I'm using parentheses when I put the number in for the variable. So I need to figure out what's 2 cubed. Remember, that doesn't mean you're doing 2 times 3. It means you're doing 2 times 2 times 2 for people who need to see it. 2 times 2 times 2 is 8. Notice how I'm following my order of operations. And 4 times 8 is 32. That's my answer. Do not leave it with the exponents. For evaluate ones, you have to figure out what is the final number answer. Number 14. Let's substitute in. We're going to have 3 times x is -2. Notice how I'm using the parentheses again, especially right here. And then -3 is going in for y. Parentheses are really important. 3 times -2 is -6. This here goes back to what we just did in 9 and 11. Okay? So your base here, this is like number 9, is negative 3, and you're squaring it. So just to really hit home about this, you're doing negative 3 times negative 3. A negative times a negative is a positive, and 3 times 3 is 9. Negative 6 plus 9 is 3. Be careful with your negatives. 15, 2 more to go, and then we're done with this. A is negative 2. Notice how I'm using those parentheses. Again, you are not doing negative 2 times 3. You are doing negative 2 times itself 3 times. So a negative times a negative times a negative is a negative. 2 times 2 times 2 is 8. 3 times negative 8 is negative 24. And the last one here, thanks for sticking with me. Again, we got to substitute in. M is 4 plus N is 2, and then we're squaring it. So again, following our orders of operations, we want to simplify those parentheses first. 4 plus 2 is 6. And again, order of operations, you want to square 6. That does not mean 6 times 2. That means 6 times 6, which is 36. And then you need to figure out what is 36 times 5. And you're negative 5, sorry. And you get negative 180. And that's it.